Hannah Hally, and welcome back to Icons of Influence, the series where we explore how influence is built, sustained, and remembered across business, culture, and leadership. Today's episode is about a very different kind of power. Not loud, not confrontational, not driven by scale or spectacle, but enduring, disciplined, and quietly transformative. This is the story of Audrey Hepburn. Her influence shows us how restraint can become authority, how values shape legacy, and why some forms of power grow stronger with time rather than fade. Audrey Hepburn was born in 1929 in Brussels, Europe, on the eve of immense global instability. Her childhood was marked by disruption, displacement, and deprivation. During the Second World War, she experienced hunger, fear, and loss, conditions that profoundly shaped her worldview. These early experiences instilled in Hepburn a deep sense of empathy and an acute awareness of suffering. They also shaped her physical presence. Her slender frame, often later romanticized by fashion, was, in part, the result of wartime malnutrition. But more importantly, they shaped her character, disciplined, observant, and emotionally attuned. Before acting, Hepburn trained as a ballerina. Dance taught her control, posture, and precision, qualities that would later define her screen presence. She didn't dominate space, she composed it. This foundation of discipline and restraint would become central to her influence. Audrey Hepburn's rise to fame in the 1950s coincided with a cultural moment hungry for renewal. Hollywood was dominated by excess, glamour, and overt sensuality. Hepburn offered something radically different. Her breakthrough roles, particularly in Roman Holiday and Breakfast at Tiffany's, presented a new archetype of femininity: intelligent, playful, emotionally complex, and understated. She embodied elegance without ostentation, beauty without aggression. Crucially, Hepburn's influence extended beyond film into fashion. Her collaboration with designer Hubert de Givenchy reshaped women's style. Together, they created a visual language that emphasized simplicity, tailoring, and timelessness. This wasn't trend following, it was brand alignment before the term existed. Hepburn became synonymous with taste. And taste, when trusted, becomes authority. Audrey Hepburn's image became one of the most valuable cultural assets of the 20th century, and remains so today. Her influence didn't rely on volume of output. She was selective with roles, deliberate with appearances, and careful with endorsements. This scarcity increased value. Hepburn understood instinctively that presence gains power when it's not overused. Long after her death, her likeness continues to anchor global luxury branding. Fashion houses, fragrance campaigns, and cultural institutions still reference Hepburn as shorthand for refinement, authenticity, and integrity. This is influence embedded in identity, not activity. In business terms, Hepburn represents the ultimate example of brand longevity driven by values, alignment rather than scale. At the height of her fame, Audrey Hepburn stepped back. Rather than pursuing continuous visibility, she made a conscious decision to prioritize family, privacy, and meaning. In an industry that rewards constant exposure, this was a radical act. Later in life, Hepburn devoted herself almost entirely to humanitarian work, becoming a goodwill ambassador for UNICEF. She travelled extensively to some of the world's most vulnerable regions, advocating for children affected by famine, war, and displacement. This was not performative philanthropy, it was lived commitment, informed by her own childhood experiences of hunger and instability. In reframing her life around service rather than status, Hepburn redefined success, and in doing so, she deepened her influence. Audrey Hepburn's leadership was never positional. She didn't command institutions or movements. Her power came from credibility. She spoke rarely, but with intention. She avoided scandal, not through control, but through clarity of values. Her public and private selves were aligned, a rare and powerful form of integrity. In a world increasingly driven by visibility, Hepburn's influence reminds us that restraint can be a strategy, and silence can carry weight. Her moral authority grew because she never sought it. Audrey Hepburn's life offers profound lessons in influence. First, restraint builds credibility. Presence matters more when it's deliberate. Second, values compound over time. Influence rooted in integrity ages well. Third, elegance is not aesthetic, it's behavioural. How you act defines how you're remembered. Fourth, power doesn't need volume. Quiet influence often lasts the longest. Finally, legacy is shaped by how influence is used, not how loudly it's claimed. Hepburn shows us that timeless influence is not built through domination, but through alignment. Audrey Hepburn didn't chase power. She embodied it quietly. Her influence endures not because she demanded attention, but because she earned trust. Through discipline, empathy, and integrity, she built a legacy that continues to shape culture, fashion, and humanitarian leadership decades later. I'm Hannah Hally, and this was Icons of Influence. Until next time, remember that the strongest influence isn't always the loudest. Sometimes it's the most graceful.